Kindly like the video and subscribe our channel for daily updates.
So we are going to get started with Microsoft SQL Server with database design techniques, and I'll be your author or your trainer. Now, what are we going to cover in this? We are going to cover everything from scratch. We'll see what is database, what is management system, what is relational database management system, RDBMS. We'll understand what is primary key, unique key, various data types, foreign key. We will then see database design techniques, what is the approach and how to design database. I'll give all these slides to you people, so no need of writing anything very much. Just try to concentrate and listen. And don't get in tension of remembering the things, because we are not going to write any exam, we are not going to write any test. Try to understand, right? That is very much important. So, database design techniques. Then we will see our T-SQL query writing, then joins. Then we will see subqueries, correlated subqueries, stored procedures, functions, views, transactions, and some admin tasks I'm going to show you, like how to generate the script of the database, how to take the backup of the database, how to restore the database. So some basic things, basic admin tasks I'm going to show you. So this is what we are going to cover in our Microsoft SQL Server course. And at the end, I'm going to give you one assignment that covers all these things. Fine. So what are the prerequisites for this course for you people to understand? Just you should know how to use computer. That's it. That is the prerequisite. So we are going to learn everything from scratch. And I hope you people might have installed Microsoft SQL Server Express Edition on your systems. So you should install this. And these are the system requirements. And once you install, there is one setting that you need to do in your management studio. Go to tools, options, designers. You need to uncheck table recreation. So at the time of implementation, I'll show you this. So in our UI tool or IDE tool, we need to do this setting after installation of SQL Server. So installation is very simple. Just you click this, then say next, next, next. You'll get the things working. So you need to install two things. One is Microsoft SQL Server, then Microsoft Management Studio or SQL Server Management Studio. So I have given those links in WhatsApp group. So those who do not have the links, they can ping me. I'll give you those links. So we need all these things for our SQL Server course to go smoothly. Now, before we go for what is RDBMS, let us try to understand something theoretical part. Why do we need RDBMS? See, in our early days of programming, we used to store the data in flat files, say not text files. We used to store the data in text files. So in simple words, I'm going to explain you. If you store the data in text file, flat text file, and if you want to read that data, then it depends on the programming language that you are using. If you are using C programming language, then you should learn file handling functions related to C. Open the file, read the file, close the file, fopen, fclose, all those things you need to do. If you change programming language C++, then again you need to learn new file handling functions. Are you getting my point? And this is one point. And the second point is we are directly interacting with the files. if we do not handle the files properly, there are chances where our programmer can delete the file. So file may get deleted. So you lose the complete data. And this is one of the many reasons why we are going for this RDBMS. So whenever you change the programming language, you need to learn new file handling functions. Are you getting the point? And the second point is, say in my organization, I have two departments. One is admin, another is HR. So initially what I thought, I need one application for admin department. So I took an application that is working on flat files. Now later on in future, I thought I need one more application for HR department or one more module for HR department. Now this files has the information about the employees, what we have for admin department. Now the same information can be used by HR department, right? But the application that this HR department has developed may be in some other programming language. So it is quite difficult for that application to read this file. So what we need to do, we need to maintain separate file for HR department. Now I have two copies of single employee. Information about that single employee, I have two different copies. One is with HR department, one is with admin department. Now employee wants to update their address. So they'll go to HR, they'll say that this is my new address. So they'll update there. But in admin, there is no update. Means what? Now we have two different addresses for one employee. So referential integrity issue we call it as. If I say employee from admin, I'll get one address. If I say employee from HR, I'll get another address. So if I want to reuse this file, then I need to make some changes in the file or some changes in the program that we have for HR. So it was really a headache and hectic task. So what we thought, instead of storing information in flat files, let us logically store the information in the form of tables. Are you getting my point? Logically in the form of tables. Like if you have seen your attendance register, it is a table, is it not? You have rows and columns. So we thought, okay, let us store the information logically in the form of a table. So whatever the information we are storing, that is our database. And we are storing in the form of table, that means rows and columns. So that is relation. Relation means table. Relation means table. In the world of database, table is called as relation, or a relation is called as table. So every relation will have a number of rows and columns. So relation is a table. And we need some separate management system that should handle all my database. So we came up with relational database management system. Now in our flat files, we were interacting with file handling functions, fopen, fclose. Now what we thought, let us make it independent of any programming language. Let us use some standard language to talk to our database. So we started using structured query language, SQL. Now if I want to read all the employees, I need not to say fopen, start reading, then fclose. I need not to do all those things. I need to write simple single line, select star from employee. It will handle all the things internally. It will open the file, it will read the data, it will give you the data. So that is structured query language. Are you getting my point? Now if we are using C programming language, then using C, I'll pass SQL to read the data. If I'm using C++, I will pass SQL to read the data. If I'm using C#, then I'll write SQL query to read the data. I need not to worry about learning new file handling functions. Got the basic reason behind RDBMS? This is one of the basic reasons. There are a lot of reasons, but this is basic and very important reason why we are going for RDBMS. So R stands for relation, DB stands for database, MS stands for management system. So there is a management system above your database, and our database is logically in the form of tables, which is relation, and this management system's job is to read the query and give the information what they want. Are you all getting? So that's why we need RDBMS, and that is RDBMS. Let us read out the point. In our traditional approach, we used to store information in flat files maintained under file operating system. Application program go through the file systems to access the flat files. So that was the issue. But what we did, now we started storing data in the form of a table where you have rows and columns. Employee ID, employee name, gender, email. These are all columns. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are rows. Fine. It was first published in the year 1970. A relational database consists of collection of tables. So one or more tables you may have. A table consists of rows and columns. Each row represents a record. Each row represents a record. Each column represents an attribute of the record. Each column we call it as attribute or field. Employee ID is one attribute or field. Name is one attribute. Gender is another attribute. Email is another attribute or fields. On this RDBMS concept, there are various tools in the market that works on RDBMS. Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, DB2, MySQL, there are a lot of things. Are you getting my point? All these technologies or all these tools, they work on RDBMS concept. So we are going to learn Microsoft SQL Server. And we interact through, what is the programming language that we use? SQL. Fine. That is all about theory. That is all about theory. Now, I have a question for you people. Do you see a table, some information, some records? Now, my first question, is this information meaningful? Is this data meaningful, or is it an ambiguous data?
Meaningful data.
Very good. Anybody over here who says that there is some kind of ambiguity in this? Do we have any ambiguity in this? No, right? You can have two employees with the same name, Tom. There is no problem. But their email addresses are different, you see. And there are chances that, you know, some employees, they may not have some contact number. Fine. So this data is meaningful. Now, my next question for you people, how many attributes do we have here? 5 attributes. Now,
4.
5 attributes we have.
4.
Employee ID, employee name, gender, email, contact. So these are all attributes. I want you to tell me an attribute. I want you to tell me an attribute using which I should identify a row uniquely.
Employee ID. Employee ID.
Employee ID, yes. Anything else? Email. Email. Right? using email also I can identify a row uniquely. Now if I use name, if I say Tom, how many Toms do we have? So it is not unique. I cannot identify row unique. If I use gender, no. If I say male, it is not a unique. So you have a number of. Contact number, no. If I say people with null contact, people those who do not have contact number, you will get a number of records. So I want to identify uniquely, so I can use employee ID. If I say 1, so how many records do we get? Only 1.
Only one.
1. So using employee ID, I can identify a row uniquely. And using email, I can identify a row uniquely. Do you see 2 employees with same email address in any organization? No. So we have 2 attributes using which I can identify row uniquely. So these 2 attributes are called as candidate keys. What do we call them as? Candidate keys. So how many candidate keys do we have in this table? 2. One is employee ID, another is email. Now it's up to my requirement to choose any one candidate key to identify a row uniquely or to refer a row uniquely. If my application is purely based on sending bulk emails, then I'll use email as my candidate key. But normally what we choose, we use employee ID. So if I choose employee ID as a candidate key or a key to identify a row uniquely, then we call this employee ID as primary key. Have you understood? Primary key is a key using which I can identify a row uniquely. Do you find any multiple employees with same employee ID in any organization practically?
No. No.
That means what? Employee ID values cannot be duplicated. Fine. Do you find any employee in an organization who does not have any employee ID? No, right? So employee ID cannot be null. Employee ID cannot be null. So in a table, you can have multiple candidate keys. Multiple candidate keys. But you can have one and only one primary key. You can have one and only one. You need to choose one column and make it a primary key to identify a row uniquely. If you are making it a primary key, then there are 2 conditions. It means that one is the value of that column cannot be null, and the second condition, that value cannot be duplicated. Are you all getting my point? But what about email then? Email is also something that is unique, right? So I cannot make email as primary key, but I can make email as unique key. I can have multiple unique keys on my table. If you make unique key or you do not make unique key, it does not matter. But if you make unique key, it will give better performance at the time of performing searching the data. At the time of reading the data, you'll have good performance if you make it a unique key. If we make it a unique key, then you cannot insert duplicate records. Then what is the difference between employee ID and email, primary key and unique key? Only one difference, that is, in unique key you can have one and only one null value. One and only one null value. That means if you have 10 email addresses, one email address can be null and all 9 should be different. And you can make multiple unique keys in a table, but can we make multiple primary keys? Have you understood?
No.
Have you understood the difference between primary key, unique key? Very famous interview question, and also the concept that we need to understand: primary key versus unique key. primary key, it cannot be null. It cannot have duplicate values. A table can have one and only one primary key. Unique key, it can have one and only one null value. One and only one null value. It cannot have duplicate values, but a table can have more than one unique key. Is this clear?
Candidate key can have one null value.
Candidate key, if we make candidate key as unique key, then it can have only one and only one null value. If you do not make candidate key as unique key, then you can have multiple null values.
So you can have multiple
But if you have multiple null values, then it is not a candidate key. Candidate key means that it should be unique. You getting my point?
So in other words, candidate key cannot have a null value.
Candidate key, if candidate key is a primary key, then it cannot have null value. If candidate key is a unique key, then it can have one and only one null value.
One null value.
Every primary key is a candidate key, but every candidate key is not a primary key. Every unique key is a candidate key, but every candidate key is not a unique key. So you may have multiple candidate keys. Now it's your choice to make one among all those candidate keys as primary key and rest of them as unique keys.
So normally we don't declare what is candidate key.
Yeah,
We just declare unique key and primary key.
that's it.
That
That is the
candidate key
terminology. Candidate key is the terminology. Is this clear? So I hope you might have understood primary key, right? So let us see. Now, do you see a table with some information? Student ID, subject ID, and marks. Is this data meaningful?
is, but it's kind of extra.
Meaningful? No. What is the problem in this?
We have the same IDs,
Student ID.
IDs.
3 student ID. So a student has 3 subjects. No? 101, 102, 103. So their marks we are maintaining. So is it valid?
That's a
Yes?
yes. Yes.
No? What?
Yes, it's valid.
It is valid, right?
It's a foreign key.
It is valid. Fine. Now, if this information is valid, then what is the primary key in this? No primary key. No primary key. No primary key. Ashok.
Primary key is the student ID.
Student ID, primary key. Then it should
In,
follow 2 rules.
right. That's
Null value
that.
and it should not get repeated, but values are getting repeated.
Right. But student ID is a primary key in the student table, but this is a different table. So I believe student ID here is a foreign key.
So, okay, leave about foreign key and different table. Just to think that
Okay.
this is the one table that we have.
Okay.
Now I want primary key. Okay, fine. If I say
Mhm.
student ID plus subject ID,
Okay. Okay.
is it
It's a
unique?
composite key. Right? Yeah.
Is it unique?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, 101, that is the unique.
Mhm.
Fine.
Right.
So now my primary key has multiple columns. So this is my composite primary key. It does not mean we have multiple primary keys. Primary key is only one, but this primary key has more than one column. If using one column I cannot identify a row uniquely, then I will try to choose 2 columns and mix them, and I'll see if I can find a row uniquely. So this is your composite.
Got it.
Got the point, everyone? So composite primary key is a primary key that has multiple columns in it. There can be 2, 3, 4. I can mix n number of columns to make it a primary key. Okay, enough of theory. We'll get started with our work. Getting started with Microsoft SQL Server. We will see how to create database. We will see how to create table. We will see how to create primary key. We will see how to create identity column. Now, what is identity column? In simple words, for a column, if I want auto-generated values, 1, 2, 3, 4, automatically it should generate. So we call it as identity column. It should start from 1, increment by 1, or it start from 100, increment by 2. Whatever you want, you can do. So that column is called as identity column. And normally for primary keys, we do not make it as identity column in our main tables. Like employee ID, we cannot make it as identity column. It is not a good practice to make employee ID as identity column. It is not auto-generated. We are going to assign some ID to every employee. But we will see what is identity column, how to make a column as auto-generated, values as auto-generated. How to set a default value, we will see. If in a column, if I do not give any value, so by default it should take some value. Like gender, if I do not give anything, it should take male as the default gender. How to do that, we will see that. We will also see how to create unique key. We will see how to create primary key. We will see how to create unique key. We will also try to write some check constraints. Now, what are check constraints? Say, for example, I have a column salary in employee table. Can that value be negative? If I pass negative value, it should stop me from doing that. So that is called as check constraints. So we are going to see how to write such constraints. Okay, log file, we'll also try to see this. This is not much important, looking into log file. So shall we get started with the practical implementation, or is this enough for today? Start. What do you say, Ashok? So shall we start implementation? Or is this enough for the day?
We can start implementation.
Okay. So I have my management studio. So once I install, I'll get it over here. You can see Visual Studio, Microsoft SQL Server 2017 tools. You have Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. So you can just right click and go for more and pin to taskbar. I have done that. So if I pin to taskbar, it will be available over here. So whenever I need it, I can just click it. It will start Management Studio. How many of you have worked on this Management Studio? You work. I think Ashoka might have also worked on it.
Yes, Mansoor, yeah.
Server name is your system name. But if you do not find server name, you can go for browse for more. Local servers, database engine. Here you will find your server name. If you do not find it in the drop down list, so this is how you can track it. At the time of installation, I have set Windows authentication. That means I don't want to have separate username and password to access this. So I'm using Windows authentication. So that is what we have. I'll say connect. Now, very important window is your Object Explorer. So we are going to work with this Object Explorer window. If I lose this window, we need not to get panic, right? I can go for View and I can click on Object Explorer. I'll get this window back. Or I can also use F8. I'll get this window back. Now the location of this window is on the left. If you want to hang it to the right, you can drag, you can select this, drag, and take your mouse pointer on this icon and leave it. So it will get pinned on the right. But this is the normal place, and anywhere you can pin it, wherever you want. But this is the best place. Auto hide is off. If I click this, auto hide is on. Now if I take my mouse pointer and click here, then you will get this. If I click here, it will automatically hide this. So I'll just pin it over here so that I should always see this Object Explorer window. Fine. Now you have lot of folders in this, so you need not to worry much about all the folders. The folder that we need to worry about is databases folder. So I'll explore this. In this databases folder, there is one folder called as system databases. I'll explore this. You should not do anything to these databases, right? You should not touch these databases, because these are the databases which contains the information about all the databases that we have or that we are going to create, in other words. So I'll minimize this. Now I want to create a database. So very simple, select the databases folder. Right click. If it is not comfortable for you here, you can sit there also, because it is very near. Yeah, you can sit there. So select databases folder, right click, say new database, right? You got this window. Database name, I'm going to give it as orgdb, organization database, anything you can give. Now whenever I'm trying to create a database, it is making two files in my hard disk. One is database file where we store actual data. Another is a log file that will have information about the transactions that we are performing on the database. To understand, if you enter into a library, you will have a log file, right? At what time you have entered, you need to write, and at what time you are leaving, you need to write. That is log file. And what books you read, you need to write. But actual books will be in the library. So library is database, right? And this register is log file. Understood? Is it meaningful? So log file will be small and database will be large. So whenever you create a database, there will always be a log file associated with it that will get created. Now, what should be the initial size of my database at the time of creation? On hard disk, how much space it should occupy? Because we do not have any data as of now. So I'm saying that initial size is 8 MB. 8 MB. Okay. If you want to increase, you can increase 10 MB initially. So let it be 8 MB. Okay. I have created 8 MB database. Now I started inserting records. Now 8 MB is full. Then what? Then auto grow by 64 MB. Database size, it will automatically grow, or it will automatically occupy more space on the disk. and its size will get increased by 64 MB. That means 64 plus 8, 72 MB it will occupy. Automatically it will grow. We need not to worry about that. And how long it should grow? What should be its maximum size? Unlimited. Means whatever the hard disk you have. Are you getting my point? Can we control this? Yes, we can control this. I'll click on this. I'll uncheck this. Now it will not grow. We have given only 8 MB because it is a trial version. We are giving free access, so we can give 8 MB. That's it. If you want more, you need to pay more. So that kind of restrictions normally admins will give. So now I'll say enable auto growth. Auto growth can be in two ways. One is in percent. It should increase by 10%. 8 plus 10% of 8, 0.08. Then it's 10%. So I can increase the size by percentage or in MBs. And maximum file size can be unlimited, or I can limit it to a particular size. Initial size is 8 MB. Let it increase by 64 MBs, and to max it can go till 1000 MB. You get it? These restrictions. But we need not to worry much about that. Just to understand the things, I have done all these things. Let the default be as is. Is it clear? So it is physically going to be stored in this location, C:program file. Now I'll say OK. So we got our database created. Now I'll explore this. Again, database I'm exploring. It has lot of folders. Again, we need not to worry about all the folders. When we create the database, now I need to create tables in this. So I have tables folder. I will explore this. Again, you have lot of folders. So let us not worry about all those folders. If I want to create a table, I'll select tables folder, right click on it and say table. Are you all getting? Everything is on right click. Want to create database, select database folder, right click and say new database. In that database, if you want to create tables, select tables folder, right click and say new table. Now columns, EMP ID, its type is integer. Numbers, I'm going to store numbers. Allow null, okay, I'll say allow null. Next, EMP name. Name is a string, right? It is a word. So I'll use varchar 50. Variable characters. So maximum 50 letters you can have in your name. Gender. It is also varchar. Its size can be little less, 10. Right? Salary. Salary is numbers, right? It is numbers. So I'll use float for that. You can have decimals, points and all those things. Don't worry about data types. We have separate topic. We'll explore that. Date of birth. It is date time. It is date time. Date of joining. It is also date time. Are you all getting the things? If an employee leaves an organization, we are not going to delete the record of that employee. what we do normally, we have flag is active. This is bit, or you can go for binary. We'll say bit 0 or 1. 0 or 1. 0 means false, 1 means true. That's it, right? Now I will click on this save button. Right click, or you have save button here. I'll just click on this save button. It will ask me for the table name. In our early days of programming, we used to give name as TBL underscore some table name. But now the latest programming approach, your table name must be singular form of your object. So we are going to store the information about employee, right? Employees. So my table name should be employee. Are you getting the point? And column name, the best practice is table name plus ID. So that we should understand, for this employee table, employee ID is primary key. And now I'll say save. Are you getting? Now, is this clear? Do anybody have any doubt? Now, how do I make primary key? Okay, we want one more column, right? Email, we want one more column. So after employee name, I'll right click and I'll say insert column. Got it? Email is also varchar. Drag, drop, you can rearrange columns. Employee ID, employee name, employee gender, email, salary, date of birth, date of joining. So you can rearrange all these things. Now I'll say save. Now there is a problem. Save changes is not permitted. The changes you have made requires the following table. I told you there is one setting I need to do. Prevent saving changes that requires table recreation. So I'll go for tools, options, and I have my designer, and here you have prevent saving changes that require table recreation. I need to uncheck this. Got it? I told you in the first slide I need to make some changes. So this is the change. Why? Because whatever the changes that we have done, that changes, it requires internally to drop existing table and recreate the table. So that is not allowed by default. So you need to do this setting. I'll say okay. Now I'll say save. Got save. Now how do I make a primary key? Employee ID is primary key, right? I'll select employee ID, right click and say set primary key. That's it. Again I need to save. You see you got a star mark here. I'll say save. Is this clear? Fine. If I want to make multiple columns, composite primary key, press Control and press multiple columns and right click and say set primary key. Are you all getting the things? Now do we get this table over here? Now I'll select the table folder, right click and say refresh. Got the employee table? We created this table. It is available under tables folder. Now if I close this, now I want this employee table. Right click, design. You can add or remove columns. Now I want the data, so I'll right click, edit top 200 rows. Employee ID, 1. Employee name, Peter. Gender, male. Email, peter@gmail.com. Salary, date of birth. In this, it will take in this format: MMDDYY. Month, 12. Date, 20, 1986. It needs time as well. So what we will do, we will not we will change the data type, because I'm not going to write time here. Design, instead of date time, as take date. So once we go for programming, it will automatically take time, so I'm not going to type in time. Because we made changes, so I have closed that window and restarted the things. Peter, mail, peter@gmail.com. MMDDYY. Date of joining, 12/12/2012. Is active. If I write 1, it is taking 2, right? Now another record, Jack, mail, jack@gmail.com. Salary, date of joining, now let us see what it says. String was not recognized as a valid date time. MMDDYY, right? So 12DD 20. Data type, date time. Oh.
Is it taking a DD
Is it taking that way? Wait a minute. D. It is taking in that way. Fine. Date, month, year, DDMMYY. I'll say 1. Now, what do you see? It is violating primary key constraint. So employee ID is primary key. Means what? Its value cannot be duplicated. I say null, it will not take null value. So constraint that we have applied, that is primary key, it is working as expected. It should be fine. Is this clear? Anybody any doubt? I want to make email as unique key. Now if I write email as Peter, is it valid? Will it take?
Yes.
It will take as of now, because we haven't made it as unique key, is it not? So I don't want that. I don't want that to happen. So I can make email as unique key. Right click, indexes/keys. Now we are going to see how to make a unique key. I will say add. I'm adding another key. Column name. Email. Say okay. Is unique? Yes. Close. Say save. Now you try this. Now I'll close this. So I think this is enough for today. We'll in tomorrow's session we'll try to do rest of the things. We have seen creating database, table, primary key. Tomorrow we'll see all these things: identity column, default values, check constraints, and we'll also see how to insert some records, ample of dummy records. We will also try to see that. And as today's was the first session, so we had some problems because we are going to get set with all the things. Tomorrow I'll do one thing. We'll have cable connected for the network, so that you should not face this connection problem. So
Thank you much.
as an overview, we saw some basic introduction to our SQL Server, and we saw what is primary key, what is unique key, what is composite primary key, and how to create table, how to create columns, and how to make primary key, how to make unique key. So we have seen some basic things, right? So if you have any doubt, you can ask. So I'm going to create a private course for this, and I'll the video that we have recorded, I'll try to convert it and upload it, and I'll give access to you people to that private course on Manzoor.net portal. Fine. Do anybody have anything? Nothing. Okay then, that's it for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mansoor.